I'm Matt Vincent, and you're listening to Lionheart Radio. Run it live.
All right, well, welcome back to Lionheart Radio. I'm your host, Rick Alexander, founder of Blue Aviv in San Diego, California. And today, my guest is a fitness entrepreneur. He's been featured in Muscle and Fitness. He's a world champion Highland Games athlete. But I think the most important thing, definitely the most important to me, is the prolific coffee mug that says "Kick Today in the Dick." He's
seems to be the one, huh?
Yeah, he's the manufacturer of that. You can forget about the Highland Games championship.
Truth is, the coffee mug's done more for me than the championship, so I guess that's good.
Dude, I bought that thing months ago. It's really taken off, I feel like.
That's awesome. I'm glad. That thing was something we didn't expect to go that well, to be really honest with you. And then it did, and we got a weird repost. Like, we made, I don't know, I think the first batch of them we made probably 150 or something like that. And then at that time I was working with Caveman Coffee, and I had posted a picture of 2 bags of coffee in the coffee mug. Caveman reposted it, and then Joe Rogan reposted it and tagged myself and tagged the brand in it, and we sold over 200 of them that afternoon, which really isn't a great conversion rate for probably the 4 or so million people that saw the picture.
Yeah, it's still.
But we were stoked at the time. I was very, very happy.
Yeah, I reposted it when I bought it. I reposted it on my company Instagram page, and I got like three people that were girls, and they were like offended. They were like, "Oh, so now the day's got a dick. Now the day's a girl." I'm like, dude.
If that's honestly how you go through your life, if that's literally I can't imagine spending my time working to be that offended.
Right. Yeah, you
like,
put time into
fuck's
that.
sake, just move on.
Yeah.
Then this isn't for you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, and that was my thing. I'm like, well, kick it where you want. I mean,
right. Or don't buy the coffee mug. That's your choice. We live in America. It's a great place.
Yeah. But
people forget that they don't have the right to not be offended.
Yes. Correct.
I mean, that's how this whole freedom of speech thing works. You can think I'm an asshole, but you don't have the right to make me not an asshole.
Right. I think that's a thing with the internet. I think that's the problem.
Of course it is. Everyone's got a voice.
Right. They were like, well, now I can tell you're an asshole, and it's my right to. And that turns into a whole thing.
Well, it's your privilege to. It's not their fucking right.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to try to not derail this conversation too many times.
Yeah, no worries. That's how it works talking to me. Sorry.
It's all good. So I want to get into like what the Highland Games is, because it's a very niche thing that a lot of people listening to this might not have an idea about. But to start, let's start with like, how did you get into strength sports in the first place? Like kind of your background and the road to get you where you are.
We kind of always did, right? So like any other 13-year-old kid, got ready to play football in college, or in high school, not college. I wasn't so proud of it.
Dude.
Just jumped straight into it. It was like Doogie Howser of small school.
Yeah.
So got ready to play football in high school, did some track and field in high school as well. So kind of every bit of lifting I've done since I was 13 was always performance-based. I've never had any time in my life where I was like, I'm going to the gym to be better looking. So aesthetics have never been the goal. It's always been performance driven. So that kind of makes things a little unique. And so went to college on a track and field scholarship through Put Discus and Hammer here at LSU in Louisiana. And then after that, kind of got away from lifting for a few years and owned a bicycle shop and got into that. And then once that failed, I made my way into some strongman and some powerlifting, and then eventually Highland Games. And that was really the best fit for me, was the Highland Games.
So you've kind of been an entrepreneur from the beginning too.
I mean, I poorly ran a bike shop, so I mean there was a shot at it, and then I had regular jobs for the next 10 years.
Okay.
So
let's go back to college. So you were throwing in college. What did your training look like? That were you utilizing like the big three, and that's how you kind of progressed to powerlifting, or how do people train to throw?
You throw a lot, a lot. I mean, see, you do your sport and you take a lot of throws 5 days a week, and that's how you get better at it. But then the strength training really, it's all GPP. I mean, everything done in the gym's GPP. I mean, don't have the best bench squat, deadlift, and snatch and clean and jerk if you're not going to throw far. Mm-hmm. So if those things aren't translating, make sure you're spending your time throwing. But yeah, we basically did kind of super total training. We squatted, we benched, we deadlift. We really didn't deadlift. So I really didn't deadlift till after college, but we bench, squat, snatch and clean and jerk.
So that makes sense, because the Olympic lifts obviously are about force development, right? So
Absolutely.
when it comes to throwing, do you think the Olympic lifts translate the most?
Yes and no. If you've got an athlete who's going to be proficient pretty easily and get into the Olympic lifts pretty comfortably, right, and not need to spend a ton of time doing them, let's call it 80% efficient. I mean, they're hitting triple extension, they're moving the bar well, they can do it in order. Then yeah, it's fine. But if you've got an athlete that's got mobility issues or putting the bar overhead or the catch in the clean's going to be difficult because of just stiffness or how they're laid out, like, I mean, a clean pull and a snatch pull, I think, are just as valuable. I don't think the catch part of the lift is valuable at all for throwers.
Okay.
Or for athletes in general, to be honest with you.
That aren't Olympic lifters, right?
Right. Unless that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So that's actually one of my problems with training, like the tactical population, because that's my background. Is military, and a lot of people want to work the snatch and the clean and jerk, and although the force development is there, I feel like the whether the juice is worth the squeeze is in question, right? Because of the technical proficiency of trying to nail the movements.
Well, I mean, you just got to remember what the goal is. I mean, if the goal is to improve your clean and jerk, then yeah, do that.
Right.
But if your goal is to be a better athlete, then remember your clean and jerk's an accessory. For you to be a better athlete, you're just building general physical preparedness.
Sure.
And so, I mean, what accomplishes that the most with the least risk of injury? And that could vary a ton per athlete. I mean, do I think, big multi-joint movements and explosive lifting with submaximal weights that Olympic lifting is important? Absolutely.
Okay.
Do I think, an athlete needing to be able to be flexible enough to properly catch a clean and catch it at the bottom of the lift? Not important at all.
Yeah, sure. So how much, when you're doing shot put and discus, how much were you actually training those things?
Shot put, discus, and hammer, I mean, we'd throw every day. So you'd probably hit 2 of the 3 events or all 3 events 4 or 5 days a week.
Do you periodize throwing? Do you progress
Absolutely.
like you would with a lifter?
Yeah, you have to, right? Because throwing's a different ballgame. Whereas, you're strongman, or you say you're Olympic lifting or powerlifting. I mean, how many times is a guy going to compete a year? I mean, if he's at a high end, we're going to say, once a quarter?
Sure.
Maybe twice.
Right.
So, 6 times a year, 8 times a year tops. Whereas a track and field athlete or as a, thrower in the Highland Games, I mean, I've competed 20 times for the last 10 years. Okay. And so if you're going to compete 20 times a year, no.
A year.
Yeah, 20 times a year for, and the season's only 6 months long. I mean, I'm busy.
Sure.
I'm going to throw damn near every weekend. I may compete 5 weekends in a row. I mean, hell, in Scotland last year, I was there for 16 days and competed 11 times. And so you got to prioritize competition, and you've got to decide this one matters, this one doesn't.
Okay.
And so for me, I would periodize so that I was my best for world championships and my best for nationals. So I had 3 games a year that really mattered. And I mean, I may throw very, very well at other games. I may hit PRs. I may do that, but that's not the focus.
Right.
I'm trying to stack the cards so that when nationals and those things come back, I've hit my main lifts. I'm as strong as I can be. I'm as fast as I can be. And I've backed off to be as refreshed as I can be.
Yeah, sure. So that's actually very applicable for the general population, because most of us that are training, we're not training for the Olympics. We're not training to peak one time every 4 years. Most people are actually just trying to stay decently fit all year round.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people are trying to be in better shape, look better naked.
Yep.
Those type of things.
Yep. Although you claim that you did not, looking better naked was never a priority for you.
Well, no, I wanted to be the best I could be at my sport.
Yeah.
And it was also never a priority because I was chubby and I just went with it.
Right. Just owned it.
Yeah, why not? I'd rather throw far and be good at what I'm trying to do. Nothing worse than looking like Tarzan, throw like Jane.
Right. So when you're doing these multiple competitions, the goal really, or the idea, was that you picked some that were almost like training meets, right? And then some of them were that you prioritize to try to win?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to go out and give it hell every weekend, but I mean, it's different for a Worlds or different for a Nationals. I mean, say during a training game, if I've got 6 games in a row and then 3 weeks off before Nationals, I mean, I'm going to train my ass off during those 6 weeks. I mean, I can't back off and just wait. So you gotta, I mean, most of those games and stuff like that, I'm gonna train. I'll travel Friday, compete Saturday, home Sunday. So train and throw Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, travel Friday. Whereas the Nationals or Worlds, I'm gonna shut it down Wednesday.
Okay. So when you train for these things, you're obviously going max output when you compete, and then you're cranking the volume up between competitions. Did you feel like the rate of injury or the possibility of injury was going up quite a bit that time frame, or did you put a lot of lifestyle measures in place to manage that?
Yeah, you got to do both, and I mean, a lot of that depends on how old you are, right?
Yeah.
and how much of abuse you can take. One of the things I kept trying to remind myself is let's try to figure out this threshold of what's the least I have to do to make progress while still making, hitting my goals. Mm-hmm. So if I can do that by lifting heavy only 2 days a week, but going to throw 3, perfect.
Okay. And
then other times of the season, like early season, I'll try to throw twice a week, but I'm going to lift heavy 4. Okay. So some of those days I'll double up, I'll throw and lift.
Yeah. So when you're in season, you're really looking for those training efficiencies between competitions.
Yeah, and I mean, what helps get me, and you got to, and it kind of floats fluid, right? I've never been the guy that's like, well, I've got to squat, 75% on Tuesday next week.
Right.
I mean, how the hell do I feel Monday? I like to auto-regulate a little bit to not be so stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's actually a really, really good point. And I think, and I'm interested in your opinion on this. In CrossFit, this has become really prolific. People are like, oh, what is Rich Froning doing? What is Ben Smith doing? Right?
What does that matter?
Well, they always want to know what the secret sauce is. Like, if I do this, I'm going to be
right.
CrossFit Games champion. And so everyone I'm interviewing, I think, that are toward the top of their sport, train by feel much more than they train by template.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And I just, for the life of me, right, I know everyone wants the secret sauce and everyone wants a magic bullet, but the truth of it is, because CrossFit is something that everyone can participate in and share the gym with a Rich Froning or whoever else, right? You could be in the gym with them, and it's just a matter of like, damn, they can do more than I can. I just need to train harder. I mean, the truth of it is if I told you that my absolute passion was going to be, I'm going to dial in nutrition, I'm going to find the perfect coach, and I'm going to commit 100% of my life to pursuing a goal, which is me playing in the NBA. You'd say you're an asshole. That's never going to happen. I don't have the tools in my box to do that from square one.
Right.
There's no different than going to the CrossFit Games.
But because the barrier of entry is lower, you're saying people fuck
people
that
think
up
they
in
can
their
do
minds.
it. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys are freaks.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. Those guys are freaks and they're amazing. And I mean, the top 10 finishers of the CrossFit Games are all mutants.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
They've got the work ethic. And then, don't also forget too that while they are mutants, if they were really good at sports, they'd be playing the big 3, getting paid a lot for them. I mean, these are guys that theoretically, I'm so stoked that they've got a place and an outlet to do what they're doing. And CrossFit is amazing. CrossFit has put barbells in the hands of more people than anything ever has.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I'm into that. But it's like someone who's really, really good at the combine, but not necessarily a great athlete, player.
Brady Quinn, that guy.
Or Rich Froning. Rich Froning was a college baseball player.
Yeah.
If Rich Froning was a very, very good college baseball player, we wouldn't know his name. He'd be playing in the major leagues.
Right.
That pays a shitload more than CrossFit, and he didn't have to work out 4 times a day for it.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Well, but I think now too, CrossFit it's starting to level up and become its own thing among pro sports. I think.
I mean, it's not the UFC, it's not Major League Baseball, it's not football, and it's not basketball. And the reason why is everyone can participate.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, the barrier of entry is much lower, and so it's because the barrier of entry is lower. It's not gonna have those freaks.
Right.
Those freaks are gonna go somewhere else.
Do you think, just based on your opinion, because you're in and out of the industry a lot, do you think that the CrossFit, the fitness movement that's exploded in the last 10 years and become this $4 billion economy, do you think it's leveling off, or do you think we're still?
I think that we're seeing a first bit of plateau.
Okay.
And the only reason I would say that is the logical side of my brain says, why did the games move to Wisconsin?
Well, it's to grow, right?
To grow?
Yeah, size-wise, like they couldn't fit as many people in the arena.
I mean, it's not like there's not enough places they could find to do it in LA or San Diego or not Wisconsin.
Right.
Places that people don't have to fly to.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the people, if you want people to attend, and that's really what you were hoping for, you do it in LA. You do it in the major cities, not Wisconsin.
And so what is your thought on why they moved?
I think they got to a point that they're bidding it out to see what city wants to host it, and Wisconsin won the bid. The same way they do World's Strongest Man, the same way they do a bunch of sporting events, right? I mean, X number of people are going to show up. And so it doesn't have to be hosted in LA.
I'm going to go with my theory that they outgrew the StubHub Center, but this is why. Because I want to shit on San Diego Chargers fans and tell them that they had to move into a stadium that was too small for people exercising.
I mean, I look, and I'm sure part of it is them saying that, I mean, because people were dropping out because of the heat in LA, that Wisconsin's going to be a better deal. But, I mean, if that's really the truth, there's indoor facilities all over the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's August, too.
I mean, if you pull it off at regionals, you can do it at the games.
So, being at the top level of a sport, what do you think the big differentiators are that you see between people that work out every day, but then the people that really make it to an elite level, such as yourself?
There's a difference between a participant and an athlete. And there's, my wife is a CrossFit participant. The people that need to train for regionals or train to be very good at a sport, it's a much different avenue. I mean, those are the type of people who have to have a very serious, CrossFit's the easiest one to look at right now. But, I mean, you got to have a very, very serious gymnastics program. Mm-hmm. You need to have a serious recovery program. Your work capacity has got to be incredible. So, I mean, who currently going to the game doesn't also work or own a gym?
Right, yeah, I don't know.
I'd say very few.
Right, very few, yeah.
Maybe some weird type of chiropractor who works in, conjunction with a gym. I mean, that's what these people now do for a living. And unless that's what you're doing, I mean, that's now the price of entry. That unless you've got the time to do this amount of work, it's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna throw Highland Games in there as the same level of effort that needs to go into the sport to be good at it. It's just not true.
Okay.
It's different. It's a highly technical sport. We do the exact same 9 things. I have to be very active 27 times a competition for maybe 50 seconds. So it's max power output. I can train very comfortably and have a real job and a career and compete very, very high. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to pursue, say, shot put for the Olympics, that's your life.
Right.
You don't get a backup.
Yeah. So all things being equal in terms of buy-in and output and the amount of work that you put into it, do you think that it essentially is in CrossFit is at the point where it's genetics, and do you also think the same thing for the Highland Games?
For CrossFit right now, I do feel that it's kind of getting to the point of the same way that I feel it is for the big 3 sports, right? That mm-hmm. I think somebody can overcome genetics or overcome, have really, really good genetics and not have to work that hard.
Yep.
Or vice versa, or work really, really, really hard and have decent genetics. And that athlete can be a very good regional level athlete. But the guys finishing top 10 have both. And that's just how it works. I mean, if you were born 6'7", CrossFit's not going to be for you.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Where do you think you shake out on that spectrum in terms of your success in the Highland Games?
I've got some genetic gifts. I'm athletic. I've always have been. I do very well at learning new skills. I do very good with body awareness. I'm relatively strong, especially, and I'm an explosive as a thrower. I mean, but genetics wise, I'm hurt. So sure. I've punched my 10 years in.
Yep.
And there's guys who didn't get hurt who are still throwing far. So, I mean, I guess there's a ramp up there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The way I've always looked at it, right, is the same guys who do well at the Highland Games are typically the same guys who were throwers. Most of us at the top of the Highland Games were collegiate throwers. And if you were a 5% better than me collegiate thrower in college, you could try to throw post-collegiate and pursue Olympic trials and go to the Olympics. And if you were 5% worse than me, you're pretty awful. So I was a very average collegiate thrower, and then this fit me very, very well.
Sure.
And got to work very, very hard at it and really reap the benefits of that.
Do you think that you talked about like naturally having an athletic ability? Do you think that, did you start sports really young? Do you think that played into your proprioception and your awareness? And
space? Of course, growing up and playing. I don't ever remember a time where playing sports was a choice. Not that it was forced, but we weren't going to be hanging out at the house doing nothing.
Right.
It was basketball season, so we're playing basketball.
Yeah.
Or baseball or soccer or football, all the way through elementary school. And then, it weasels down to the ones that you want to do and the ones that you're seeing success in. And so, by the time I got to high school, it was really just football and track. Mm-hmm. And then I got some offers to do both in college. Nobody was recruiting 6 foot, 230 pound slow linemen to any of the schools I wanted to attend.
Yeah.
And so track and field was a better fit for me.
Yeah, I don't want to be that podcast that shits on the generation below them, but those days I think are essentially gone for people, because it was the same way when I was growing up. It was like my mom gave me like 30 minutes in the morning to watch whatever I wanted on TV or whatever, and it was like, get the fuck out of the house.
Yeah, no, it should, right? But things are different too. I mean, my dad was a Boilermaker, so he worked a lot, and mom was a teacher, so mom was around at the house whenever we were home. She got off school the same time we did and was home all summer and stuff like that. So I think a lot of that plays in. I think family dynamic's different. I think you got two working parents all the time. It's a different ballgame. Mm-hmm. And not only that, I mean, we have dealt with a generation of people who are given participation trophies. I remember failing.
Right.
I remember being bad at sports in elementary school, and there wasn't anyone to pat you on the back. It was like, well, you guys suck. And there's nothing wrong with failure. That's what teaches people shit.
Mm-hmm. So you were a part of the population that failed, and were like, essentially, like, you used it intrinsically to motivate you to do better. I'm sure. I'm going on a limb, but
yeah, I didn't enjoy failure.
Yeah, right. So
I mean, with that said, that didn't go across the board. I wasn't a wonderful student.
Right.
I did enough in school to get by and not be bothered. That was
yeah.
That was my MO.
I hear you. Yeah. But I'm just wondering, how many, now that we're in the participation trophy, how many more kids do you think are affected positively? So how many kids do you think would have gotten that, were labeled a loser back when you were growing up or I was growing up, and they were like, well, fuck this, I'm out of here, and then didn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that's part of it, right? I'm sure there's kids who aren't getting the correct amount of hugs / beatings.
Right. And
I don't know what that combination is or the answers for it. Clearly, whatever my brother and I had at home seemed to work for us.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have kids, and I don't know what the generations under me are doing. I know that I'm not concerned with competing with the generation under me for work.
Yeah. No,
I'll do just fine.
Yeah, that's fair. It's a fair assessment. Yeah, I'm just speculating too. I have no idea, and I'm on board with. I think there needs to be winners, and I think there needs to be losers, and I think that's what made this country
great. The difference is you're not born one or the other, right? And that's the important message. It's a choice. Mm-hmm. At some degree. I mean, with that said, play to your strengths. This guy doesn't need to fall in love with basketball and decide playing the NBA is his only mission in life. Right. That's setting up for failure. Do the things you're good at, but do a lot of things to figure out what you're good at. No one owes it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I was an instructor in a selection course in the military for a while, and one of the things that they looked at a lot for the kids that made it and the kids that didn't make it were whether their parents told them when they did well, you're naturally good at this, or whether they told them you tried really hard for this. And the difference being the kids that were told, hey, you're naturally good at this your whole life, when they came up against adversity and they came up against failure, they were like, well, fuck this, I'm not good at this. And the kids that were like, hey, you tried for this, they were like, oh, okay, where can I try harder? Where can I try better? And I don't know where that conversation goes, but just putting it out there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think there's a lot of factors,
Yeah.
And times do change and stuff like that, but more people seem to be lifting and going to gyms and stuff now than were before, and I mean, I'm into that.
Right.
I don't particularly care what sport people decide to follow or go to, as long as they're doing something.
Yeah, and I think that is the most positive byproduct of CrossFit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. CrossFit single-handedly has put barbells in more people's hand than anything else ever has.
Yep, and it just made more people aware of how they move through time and space, like gymnastics-wise. I mean, the whole gamut, yeah.
And I mean, your average CrossFit participant still is getting the idea that you can play, that play can be physical.
Yeah, that's true. That is something you lose, and I think that was one of the reasons I got drawn to CrossFit right out of the gate. Is I'm in my mid-20s, and it's like, oh shit, I'm like taping up for a competition again and getting ready for a sport. I'm like playing something.
Right.
So we kind of did this interview a little bit backwards, but what are the Highland Games for people listening?
Highland Games. So it's Scottish heavy events, and there's 9 events. We throw 2 stones, just like the shot put. We throw 2 weights for distance. We throw 2 hammers for distance, a weight over bar, a caber, which is the most known, which is your telephone pole looking caber
that's the
that
one
you
that
flip.
always ends up on a meme.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the one. That's the one that looks crazy. That that's the one the crowd likes.
Yep.
And then there's a sheaf, which is a 20-pound or 16-pound burlap bag you throw with a pitchfork for height.
Okay, so it's all throwing.
Yeah, all throwing.
And how dangerous is that fucking caber? Does that ever come down and whale people?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. A guy in the pro class last weekend in Costa Mesa. So you use a tacky like a pine resin.
Okay.
Or
like
a carpet
like
adhesive.
an Atlas
Yeah.
stone. Okay.
Yeah, and not quite that sticky, but like since I can just buy it at the hardware store, I just buy that 3M carpet adhesive, and you spray that on your hands.
Okay.
Pretty sticky. And so, you interlock your fingers like this around the bottom of it, and sometimes they don't want to come apart. And if you're in the panic with a caber and you didn't scoop it and get under it, and now it's dropped and you're trying to get away from it, if it hits one end, the other end's going to whip.
Yeah.
And so, broke a dude's arm.
Oh, goddamn. What does it mean to get to be a pro in Highland Games? Is like a pro card?
Not really. So you compete as an amateur for a while, and at some point you're throwing far enough and enough athletic directors know who you are that you can get invites to pro games.
Okay.
And then once you do that, you stop doing amateur ones.
Okay. And then you win enough pro games, and then you get invited to the World Championship?
Kind of.
All right.
It's a little loose.
Do you not want to put it out there for people? Or
no, it doesn't bother me in the least.
Okay.
I've been on many podcasts and said it's not really a sport. It isn't because it's not WWE, right? But at the same time, like, it's not all based on merit.
Okay.
World Championships, they're going to invite X number of people from X number of countries, and those aren't always the best people or the best options.
So there's probably a political aspect to it.
Yes and no. I don't know if it's political as much as they're trying to put on a good show. And so most of the games that we do, I look at as we're paid entertainment. And so they're part of big festivals or something like that. And so they have us out. And World Championships, for sure, they do a pretty good job. All the ones that I've competed in, I would say 95% of the crowd should have been the ones they were there. But if you're only going to bring 2 Americans, then we were the 2 Americans that should have probably been there. I just have an issue when Poland has as many representatives as the U.S. when the top 5 guys in the world could very easily all be U.S.
I gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. I want to throw and test myself against the best people on earth, period. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in what country they're from.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe you touched on it right there, but so if it's not this big and it's not necessarily a sport, as you say. With
that said, if you were throwing the furthest on the planet, you're most likely going to get an invite to the Worlds.
Okay, sure. So my question is, what motivates you to keep doing it, or why do you keep doing it? Or are you still doing it?
Right now I'm hurt and I'm down about 50 pounds, so I'm pursuing some other stuff. And until I can sprint at full speed or jump, I'm not going to concern myself with trying to throw again. But why I loved it? It was everything I loved about throwing shot put and the traditional Olympic events in college, but none of the bullshit. Like, I didn't have to go to class. I didn't have a coach I had to deal with. It was all on me. Mm-hmm. I didn't have teammates I didn't get along with or weird timing for practice. I was succeed or fail because of the effort I put into it. Okay. And I like the challenge of throwing, that no matter what, like, the implements don't ever get heavier. It's all about how much more leverage and speed I can put into them. And so with, you trying to find the most speed, technique, and strength that you can find. Mm-hmm. And at some point in that triangle of attributes, once you hit a certain level, it gets really tricky because, the faster I get, maybe the weaker I got. Sure. Or if I spent a bunch of time throwing, I didn't spend as much time in the gym. Technique got better, but I got weaker. So it's always been fun trying to figure out where that balance is. It's like, does me putting 10 pounds more on, does me taking 10 pounds off, does me throwing 4 days a week or throwing this volume work better than me needing a 700-pound squat?
Yeah, for sure. I think a way that people could probably relate to that is trying to find the balance between, like, strength and body weight. That's like a ratio that people tend to fuck with, right? And maybe not as many variables, obviously.
Yeah, and the thing is with throwing, especially with the Highland Games, you're spinning around and throwing a 56-pound implement as far as you can, with one arm. You got to have a certain amount of sand in your pockets.
Yeah.
without enough ass, like it's just it wins.
Like mass moves mass, kind of.
Absolutely.
Hey fam, I wanted to take a quick break from the show to talk to you about an experience that I had and also a product that I created out of that experience to solve a problem that I had. So for 4 years, I was an instructor at a military selection program. What that meant is that I would run and I would swim with the students, and then I would also do physical training. And I actually designed a lot of that physical training, and it was more of, CrossFit-y circuit, body weight type stuff, running, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, the normal calisthenics that you would see in the military. At that same time, I was also training for CrossFit myself, which means anybody who's ever tried to compete in CrossFit knows that getting really good at all of those different disciplines takes a lot more time than it looks like from the outside, maybe. At least it looked like for me. So once I got in, I realized, okay, I had to train 2 times a day or more in order to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. Now, what that meant is I would have to train before work, then I would go to work and I would train with the students, and then after work, I would also train again for myself for my second session of the day. And of course, I tried to line them all up so that I wasn't just getting wrecked on all fronts, but that's a difficult thing to do. So for the most part, it was just a ton of volume, and it was really hard to recover. Now, in an attempt to recover, I started realizing, okay, I have to start making up for all of these different lifestyle factors like sleep and how I eat and my nutrition and my supplements. And so supplements was one of the first things that I went to. But I realized in order to get ready for the next workout, I had to eat, I had to take supplements that I couldn't, for things like creatine that I couldn't get from the food. And then on top of that, I was tired, so I had to drink coffee so I could get my mind right for the day, for the next workout. And it was really this like nightmare scenario where I was constantly trying to take things in just in order to stay even and feel okay going into the next thing. What I started to find is all of the supplements that I was taking off this shelf were chocked full of fillers. They either had things that I didn't want in them, or it didn't have enough of what I actually wanted in it. So I started researching all of these different supplements, and I started researching what was actually in the labels, and I realized all of these different fillers are chocked full of things like gluten that make me feel like shit. They would make me feel bloated, or essentially just, you don't want to have to recover from a recovery is what I found. I have enough fucking recovering in my life just trying to work out 2 or 3 times a day. So what I started doing is started sourcing and buying all of the raw materials myself for all of the products that I found had proven studies that were not backed by supplement companies. I mean, proven results like creatine. It helps with strength, endurance, recovery, and it's very studied. Very widely studied, I should say. So I started sourcing these materials, putting them together, and then taking them myself. So that way I knew exactly what I was putting in my body, and I knew that everything I put in my body was proven to work, at least on some level. And then I started giving it out to all my friends and all of my teammates that also worked out with me. And what I started to find is that there was starting to be a really big demand for this product. Now, giving it out, I realized that got to a point where I was working out 3 times a day, working in the middle of those times, and then I would get home at night and I would have to be in my garage and I'd be making all this product. So that just got really hard. So we eventually outsourced the manufacturing, and I told people, hey, you guys are going to have to pay me for this product if you continue to want it. And that's exactly what we did. So we outsourced manufacturing, we started calling it Lionheart Refuel, and we started selling it on a much bigger scale. So what you get in that is branched chain amino acids, glutamine, creatine. These are all things that have proven to help with the physical recovery. And then for that mental acuity piece, we put caffeine, ginseng, and guarana. Not a lot, not enough to make you buzzed, but just enough to make you kind of have that alert feeling and feel good going into the next workout. So it's nothing on the level of a pre-workout, but more of just a help lift you up once a difficult workout puts you in a mental deficit. So if you guys want to check that product out, you can go to www.lionheartrefuel.com and use code RADIO so that we know you're a listener of the show, and you'll get 10% off. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this, and now we'll get back to the show. All right, thanks. Do people drink in the middle of these events? Isn't there like a whiskey toast?
I don't know that whiskey. There's a whiskey toast occasionally. Some of the more I've done that in Canada, a couple games and stuff like that. But I mean, long day out in the sun, whiskey's not my first choice of beverage.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, have I had beers during competition? Oh yeah, it's great.
Okay. So when I was on deployment, we started this thing called the CrossFit drinking games. And,
that sounds good.
And I don't want to advocate it, but I do want to talk about it a little bit. I've seen videos of you deadlifting and drinking. What were some of the workouts you did?
It was never like that. I mean, any of that's always just been a goof, right? I mean, I've I have been inebriated and chose to lift barbells before.
Yeah.
But it was never, I'm not Chris Duffin. It was never, I thought I'll have a drink and that'll help this workout. Like it never does.
Yeah, no, of course not.
True,
and that's
right?
not what I'm saying.
I've drank and had some, done some deadlifts. I've drank and thrown sheaf. Usually by the time we get past lunch and on to caber, I like having a beer or so in me. It usually knocks nerves down a little bit and keeps you a little bit calmer for throwing. Because as soon as you're tight and trying to throw far, you're going to be terrible at it. Being a little loose and having a little less gives a fuck. It seems to help.
Yeah. I want to suggest a shot of beer and a clean and jerk every minute for an hour. Clean and jerk power hour.
It's awful.
No, it's fucking awesome. I'm telling you.
Well, wait.
So we started at 135 and I've done it up to 185, but I felt like it was getting a little sloppy. But here's the thing: you start off for like 15 minutes, you like feel bloated and shitty, and then you hit like a Superman phase from minutes 20 to 40. Yeah. Yep. And then you're like, dude, I'm gonna do this for 2 hours, and then you hit minute 50, and you're like, all right, let me get me the fuck out of here.
I hate all this.
Yeah.
My attention span's probably not good enough for an hour.
Right. So
I'll be good for a sweet 10 minutes. We'll go harder.
Yeah, I've done it with pull-ups, I've done it with snatches. I don't know. Anyway, I was trying to figure out what you did, because I've seen videos of you online doing something like that.
Yeah, I play around. I think I challenged a girl to a deadlift contest one time while we were drinking pretty good.
I think that's the one I saw.
But I could out deadlift her one-handed.
Oh yeah. So
showed her.
What injuries did you get?
The really only injury I've ever had has been with my knee, and I tore an ACL in college, and then got it fixed, and then retore it in 2000. So first tear would have been like 2001. Got it fixed, and then retore it in 2005 or something like that, 2007, and then just rolled on it for 10 years without an ACL competing. You don't really need one.
Sure.
They're overrated. Sure. It's just a seatbelt, basically. Yeah. And
I don't know if that's true.
Nah, me neither. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah. Did you
just keep the rest of the knee intact? So eventually the knee gave out. I tore a meniscus, got that fixed last March, finished my season, and then knew that I needed to take some time and do a bigger surgery to fix the ACL, fix the meniscus, pull out some garbage, and then try to clean up and fix the cartilage, which is the Oates procedure, which we did as a transplant of cartilage, and that's the one that's the really big rehab that I'm kind of
coming back from,
limping around on. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the mindset trying to come back from an injury. Are you trying to once again get to the same level in the Highland Games? Nope. It's
not the goal yet.
Okay.
The goal is to be pain-free. The goal is to run. The goal is to jump.
Is that a strategic goal because of mindset, or?
Well, there's no point in trying to be top of the Highland Games if I can't do those things first. So one step at a time. And so, I mean, that's part of it, right? And then the other part of it is I've spent 10 years competing at a high level in the Highland Games. I'm not sure what new lessons or life experiences the Highland Games really offers me. Ready to do something else.
What do you think that thing's going to be?
I want to travel more. I want to experience some new stuff. I want to make more YouTube videos. I really enjoy doing that. And I really want to the message I want to kind of push across is that, a strong life's a better one. I mean, the barbell will always be a consistent for me. That's never going to go away. Strong will always be a consistent, but I don't want to feel so fragile. I don't want to feel so, well, shit, I got to train tomorrow. Otherwise I can't, this isn't going to line up or that's not going to line up. And I did all those things. I got to compete at a high level in a sport that I love. Mm-hmm. And now I want to be able to go on a hike. I want to be able to go ride my mountain bike. I want to be able to be capable of doing those things if the situation presents itself and not say like, oh, I don't know.
Right. So you mean like stronger as in not maximal strength, but just resiliency in life?
Yeah, harder to kill.
Yeah, for sure. Something I've been experimenting with is cycling stress like you would progression in a lift. I mean that like by sleep, what you eat, how much movement you get through the day. Like I find that you can do progressions of the amount of stress that you have throughout your body. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but you can.
I'm listening. I'm curious. So
you can do you can progress. So like the amount of movement you have throughout the day, like you could do a 3-week progression on the amount of stress you inoculate in your body, and then you can deload just like you would with lifting. And by doing that, you make yourself more resilient. It used to be if I didn't get 8 hours of sleep, I was a son of a bitch to be around. And now I feel like legitimately, because I'll stack a whole bunch of business interviews and stuff. I'll stack competitions. I'll stack these things, and then I'll deload. And I feel like, no, I legitimately can move through life.
Catch back up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, look, the human body's amazing at adapting to whatever the main stimulus you're going to put on it. And so, I mean, if you want to sleep 6 hours a night, you can get real used to sleeping 6 hours a night and function totally properly.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's going to be a long time probably before I'm a guy that does well on 8 hours of sleep. I just don't.
On 8 hours?
Yeah, I'm just not an 8-hour sleep guy. I sleep for about 6.5.
Okay. Yeah, that's good quality to have as a business owner.
Well, that's just when I wake up.
Yeah.
I don't use an alarm clock, and then once I wake up, I just get up and start going. I mean, I don't have a problem going to bed at 9:30, but I'm typically going to be up, between. I'll wake up a couple times in the middle of the night to pee or whatever like that, but then I'm out of bed between 5:30 and 6.
So how do you set your lifestyle up? Because do you have a full-time job, or you just do the
Nope.
entrepreneurial
HVIII
thing?
brand. As of March, I've had a full-time job up until March, and they decided to not pay me anymore. Sure. And so now I'll just do HVIII brand.
Fucking technicalities. Always.
Yeah, right? Bastards.
What is HVIII brand? So I know
HVIII
it's
brand
the coffee
is
mug.
my apparel company. So it's the apparel company. I wrote about it in the 3 books I've written called The HVIII. And basically the idea behind that is, self-motivation through a bit of self-loathing. Not listening to your own bullshit, not listening to your own, well, I deserve a week off, or, I should probably not train today, or I should not get up and have these meetings. No, I'll sleep in. Like, no one owes you shit.
Sure.
And if what you want is success, or what you want is to lift more, or what you want is to be in better shape, then that's in your ballpark. Mm. And until you're going to be able to do that work and push yourself, stop complaining about it.
And so what does the hate come in?
The hate part of it is something my brother and I had spoke about a long time, and watching different athletes, right? And the best one I always think about is your Jerry Rice, your guy that is on top. And then you always hear stories about this work ethic that Jerry Rice had, this always up going to run hills and going to run different routes, and just the hardest fucking working dude on the field, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, that dude hates himself more than you do. That dude ain't satisfied at night when he goes to sleep. He's got work to do, and he's the best. I don't know how much you're patting yourself on the back, but I've never been comfortable with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you think that comes from hate more than it comes from self-compassion? Not to get too philosophical, but
I would say there's a little bit of not being complacent in where you're at.
Yeah,
that's driven with not liking what you're seeing in the mirror.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
If I was complacent, I'll go sit on the couch and play Xbox all day. I'm super good at it.
Right. I really like the branding of HVIII brands. I did have a girl ask me to borrow my HVIII mug.
Yeah, I've heard it too.
Okay.
I've had plenty of people who've actually bought it and then later hit me up to say what it actually is, which is fine by me, I guess.
Yeah. As long as
that's really that idea, is the idea that, you're willing to. We can't pick our genetics. We can't pick talent we have in things, and I don't know how much I believe those things can be coached, right? I don't think you can choose to be 6'6" or 6'10", or choose to be able to be a guy that can throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball.
Yeah, probably not.
But I can choose to outwork you. I can choose to show up on time. Mm-hmm. I can choose to show up and do the work that needs to be done. I can choose to be creative. I can choose to not miss meetings. I can choose to do all these things. And I can do those instead of saying I'm going to be lazy today.
Yeah, fuck yeah, I agree.
I'm gonna be dead relatively soon. It's something. I'm 34 years old, so let's say I've got a sweet 50 years tops, most likely.
Max, right?
And till then, pedal down.
Yeah. Well, what are the books that you wrote? What are they about?
They're all training based. So the first one I wrote was Training Lab, and it was basically a block periodization program for the Highland Games. And so it kind of lays out how you should run a full season, or basically how I run a full season. After that was Throwing Lab, which is your how to throw. So it's a step-by-step with pictures of all the events and what drills you should do and the rules of the sport and blah, 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 and how to set up throwing practice.
Yep. And
then Strength Lab was your gym rat version of Training Lab. You just want to be stronger and more explosive? Here's your program. You don't have to throw.
Gotcha.
You should. You don't have to.
Okay. Yeah, I think the first one's really cool because there's probably a lot of people that have maybe wanted to try Highland Games and have no fucking clue where to start with that.
Well, of course, right? there's a reason that the guys are good at Highland Games were also throwers in college. I mean, it's basically cheating.
Yeah.
We've already got an 8-year head start basically because we threw probably in high school, and then you threw in college, and then you moved to the Highland Games. So I already know how to move and generate force, and I've had a real coach. But how to actually exactly, and how to develop a program of how to peak and back off and realize that I can't peak for 20 weeks. I can peak for 3 tops. Understand the difference between speed work and strength and power. I mean, max strength is important, but me grinding out a 700-pound squat for 2 seconds doesn't translate to me throwing something that weighs 56 pounds. That hydraulic strength doesn't mean shit.
Right.
I got to be able to go. I need horsepower. I need to be able to move the bar at a meter a second. I mean, what's the heaviest I can move the bar that fast?
Yeah, and you need to develop it from a dead stop, which is
that too.
Yeah.
And I need to throw.
And just recruiting those muscle fibers over time, I'm assuming it takes a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's just going to take a lot, right? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in one of the throws, and until you're proficient enough to transfer X amount of your strength to it, get better at your sport.
So for high school football, I did the same. I think it's the same shit program everybody did, the bigger, stronger, faster program or whatever it was.
Sure. I've done it.
Yeah. So from starting there to where you are now, to where like you've trained with, you were just on the Mark Bell podcast, and you were with Kelly Starrett and those guys. So going from that full spectrum of training, how have your training methodologies or thought processes kind of changed over the years?
So, a lot of it based on what I did in college, as far as an athlete goes. And so I knew how to periodize to throw and how to back off and how to peak and when speed work needed to be added in. And so from that skeleton, really, I added in what I enjoyed and what I got the most progress out of from my years of strongman, my years of powerlifting, and my years of, I spent some time doing West Side for Skinny Bastards. I spent some time doing a conjugate program, and there's great parts of it. And then there's, great parts. There's good parts of every program. And the program that always spoke to me most as an athlete was for sure 5-3-1. And so being around Wendler and getting that type of influence, that's really what I felt was great for throwing. It just needed Olympic lifts or some type of full body explosive movement, whether that's going to be a snatch pull or a clean pull, like I said earlier. Yeah. And the only thing Wendler doesn't have that I really like are those and the push press instead of a military. Okay. I like the idea that I'm learning to transfer power from my legs and feet all the way into my hands in one fluid movement.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the only way you're going to figure out that you like something like that is having gotten the reps and done all of these different things.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, one of the most common questions you get is, you're a novice who, hey man, I'm enjoying training and I'm trying to get strong. What do you recommend? What program do you recommend? I recommend one that you'll follow for a really long amount of time. Mm-hmm. And then the other part of that is I think you should squat moderately heavy once a week for the next decade. You'll be fine. The rest of it will fucking figure itself out.
Yeah, that's something that Brandon Lilly, we just aired his episode a couple weeks ago, but that's one of the things he said too, is he was like, elite lifter is going to get fucking stronger, and it doesn't matter the program that you would have put before him. Like, he was like, I was going to be an elite lifter no matter what program I did.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. I mean, I trained with Gary Frank for a period of time, a power lifter, and Gary's program was 52 weeks of heavy geared singles in bench shirts and squat suits and stuff like that, and it worked really well for Gary because Gary's a freak. Mm-hmm. Right. It worked well for his athletes until they turned about 22. Yeah. And then they broke. Right. And then they broke. But it worked for Gary because he's outside the bell curve. Yeah. And anything would have worked for Gary. But yeah, I mean, people put a lot of weight on the X's and O's of programming. And to be honest, I mean, as long as the 80% of your program is there, some type of linear progression, and you're going to bench, you're going to squat, you're going to deadlift, and you're going to press overhead of some sort, going to be fine.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then after that, it's putting in the work, right?
Yeah, which one works for you? And it's no different than diet. What diet? I mean, your program is really similar to the way I look at dieting. What diet should I do? The one that you don't hate, that you're going to follow every day. Which one can you do for the next 8 months? You'll be fine. I don't care if it's keto or it's going to be, all carbs and no fat like a bodybuilder, and it just doesn't fucking matter. Which one can you do consistently and stay in a deficit? You'll lose weight.
Yeah. Right, a caloric deficit. Right, exactly.
That's it. You got to be in a caloric deficit. Done.
Yep. Yep. And then, and that's one of the reasons I tell people, like, sometimes people come to me with these fad diets, like, as a coach, and I'm like, I always say, like, yeah, fucking do it. Like, just, like, do something, learn what works and what doesn't work for you, and then from there, you're not going to stick with that, whatever fad bullshit that is, but you'll probably come up with some amalgamation of it, hopefully, if you're committed and you put in the work.
I mean, we're all a big, the compilation of the experiences we've had thus far, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, some truths speak for everyone. You want to lose weight, be in a deficit. You want to gain strength, you're going to have to lift heavy consistently for a really long time. What actually gets you there is going to vary a lot per person. I mean, if I've got hell, a guy with one leg doesn't get to do the same program I do, but that doesn't mean we both can't get strong.
So that's actually a perfect segue to the Lionheart Kicker, which is the final question. Based on everything that you've done, all the experiences you've had, it can be based in life or it can be based in training. If you could give blanket advice and we're guaranteed that it would be translated to every language and everybody would hear it, of course they might not all follow it because you can lead a horse to water, but what would you tell people?
The small details don't matter. The small details don't matter at all. And what does matter is love the process. And for anyone out there who's successful, and I don't care what field it's in, there's a reason that Bill Gates doesn't retire and go sit at his house. There's a reason that guy works. There's a reason Steve Jobs worked forever. It's because they love the process. They love the work. And that's the part of it. There isn't this finish line that you magically reach and you say, well, fuck it, I'm done. I didn't win a world championship. It wasn't about the world championship. It wasn't about that day. It was about the thousands of reps I've put in over the last 10 years to get there.
Right.
And if you don't love that 1,000 reps, you're never going to get to enjoy that last one. And who knows when that last one comes, but you got to love the process. And so for your young lifter, don't just sit there and chase PRs. Love the work and love the going to the gym and know that that's part of your life, not doing it because you think someone else is impressed. Do it because you love it. That's probably the biggest lesson I've learned from training by myself for 10 years in a garage. No one gives a shit if I hit a PR. It's for me. I do it. And be smart and love the process of getting stronger. Does it make any difference if I put 5 more pounds on the bar today or I took 10 off and hit it for a triple? Nope. It's all part of the process. What's stupid is deciding to rush it and get hurt and then sit out. Yeah. Or what's stupid is thinking like, oh, I hit a 500-pound deadlift. I don't ever have to lift again. That's not how it works. Now you want to put a 2.5 on it. You know what I mean? So love that road because it doesn't end.
Yeah, the most successful people I've interviewed on this podcast have that mindset. Like they wake up every day at the bottom of the mountain, right?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day counts, right? And I mean that's all part of the process. Life's part of the process, and be fluid and know that injuries are part of the process. You do anything long enough, it's a war of attrition. People are going to fail. People are going to get hurt. You're going to fail. You're going to get hurt. And there's nothing wrong with that either. That's your process. That's your journey. So learn to love that too. Learn to love that, man, I got rehab to do. Where can I get better? Where can I improve while I'm hurt and I can't do these other things? What have I neglected for the last 5 or 6 years because I didn't have to focus on that?
So let me ask you this. For 90% of the people that are listening to this, they're deeply involved in the rat race. And nothing's wrong, right? But nothing's necessarily right. And they're just getting fucking pounded away by life every single day. What is your advice for those people to find the process, right? To love the process, like you're saying, because a lot of times people don't have this rock bottom experience where they find, or a lot of people don't find the Highland Games that niche thing that they love, right? Like people are just kind of going about their life, doing what they're told to do, and they wind up kind of unhappy. What's your advice for those people?
I have very little in common with the guy who doesn't want more and who wakes up every day and says, this is fucking great, or this is okay. The guy that lets 10 years slip through his fingers and doesn't realize it all changed. I don't know what to tell that guy. If you don't wake up every day and fucking want more and want to do better and push yourself, I don't know what I have in common with you. I don't know what advice to give you. I wake up every day fucking excited. And I did that when I had a job. I did that when I had a job I didn't like. All of that was the process to get to where I am now. I knew that before I could do this, I had to do that. And you're going to have to eat shit for a while at the bottom of the hill before you get to the top.
Yep.
And that's how it goes. And not only that, just because you're around the top of the hill doesn't mean you can't be knocked smooth on your ass. That happens too. I mean, while things are going very well for me right now, the brand's doing well, I get to do what I want to do. I don't know if this is the case in 5 years.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, nothing's guaranteed.
Nope, nothing.
Right.
No one owes me a damn thing. Damn sure not success, and not just because I work hard.
Yep.
So, I mean, that guy, I don't know, man. Find passion. I just can't imagine. Some people are going to be that dude, right? Simply based on numbers, most people are going to be average.
Right. Correct.
But there are some things that you can try to do to try to understand philosophically what makes you happy and pursue it. And I don't mean that you need to decide what makes you happy is knitting, and so you need to start a knitting business. It's cool to have a hobby. You can have a hobby that doesn't pay your bills. It's called work. Find a job you don't hate that pays you enough to do the things that you want to do in your spare time. That was what I did for 10 years. Mm-hmm. I didn't hate it. I was relatively good at it. I mean, I wouldn't have left that job had they not let me go.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It was a good job.
Right.
I still got to do the things I want to do in my spare time. You're not sure how to get to that point? I mean, most people work 8 hours a day. Let's say that's a safe number. If you're working more than 8 hours a day, someone's probably paying you well, or you're 22 and you're an idiot and you're 22, and congratulations, you're 22. Just give it some time. You'll get there. No one trusts you yet to give you responsibility. So you work really hard for 8 hours, and then when you get off, spend the next hours working really hard on the thing that you want to do, and then sleep.
It's good. It's straightforward advice. I think a lot of people need to hear it.
Spend 8 years developing a craft. Spend 8 years trying to be good at something. Or your 8 extra hours a day. Stop fucking watching TV.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, hey, thanks for being on. I really appreciate it. For people that are listening to this and they want to follow along with your journey, support what you're doing, where can they do that?
Best bet's probably YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube's probably your best bet to find me. Matthew Vincent is the easiest way to look up my channel.
Okay. Are you doing the Drifta Lifta thing anymore?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. So we film that about once a year, right? That's the one that actually costs me money. And so we leave Thursday for Iceland. We have 8 of us going to Iceland for 10 days.
Nice.
Yeah, it should be really good.
Cool, man. All right. Hey, thanks for being on. I really appreciate you taking the time, Matt.
Cheers. I appreciate it, Rick.
All right. Thanks, brother. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Lionheart Radio. I hope that the information from today's show will make you fitter, happier, and healthier. For the show notes of this episode and every episode, head to www.lionheartrad.io. Yep, just like Lionheart Radio. And please, if you have the time, head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps us to know that we're on the right track in delivering you reliable information and value. As always, feedback is welcomed. If you have any comments on the show or would like to suggest a guest, send me an email at rick@luavive.com. That's LUAVIVE.com. Thanks for your support, and we will see you next time.
Bitch, I feel good. Don't I look stupendous? My shine is so endless, and shit you can do to end this. Even when I'm dead, niggas still gon' bump that chip shit. Coke, white, Escalade on cinches for you dipshit. So you won't forget this. Midwest nigga be the coldest. Cleveland